السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه والشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه أما بعد. إخواني في الله, we're continuing with our lecture series regarding the signs of the Day of Judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَقَدْ جَاءَ أَشْرَاطُهَا, that the signs of the Day of Judgment have already appeared amongst us. Ikhwani fillah, in the previous lessons, we have taken so far 7 signs from the signs of the Day of Judgment. Sign number 1, the coming of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sign number 2, the splitting of the moon. Sign number 3, the death of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sign number 4, the conquest of Bayt al-Maqdis. Sign number 5, the plague of Amwas that killed many of the Sahaba of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sign number 6, a lot of wealth will be amongst the Muslims, so much so that you will not find someone to accept the sadaqah. And sign number 7, Fitnah. There will be a lot of trials and tribulations on the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says in authentic hadith, إِنَّ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ سَاعَةً فِتْنَةً كَقِطَعِ اللَّيْلِ الْمُظْلِمِ يصبح رجل مؤمنا ويمسي كافرا ويصبح مؤمنا ويمسي مؤمنا ويصبح كافرا يبيع دينه بعرض من الدنيا كما في رواية عند أبو هريرة. Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he says that before you, O Muslims, is trials and tribulations. A man will be a believer in the morning, and in the evening he is a disbeliever. Another man will be a believer in the evening, and in the morning he is a disbeliever. So we're looking at fitna and trials and tribulations that will occur. One day, the Amir al-Mu'mineen Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu, the second best person of the prophets, he was sitting with his companions, and he says to them, who amongst you has memorized a hadith regarding fitna, regarding the trials and the tribulations that will come to the Muslims? Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiyallahu anhu, he says, I have memorized the hadith, and he mentions the hadith. Umar, he says to him, this is not what I wanted. I want the fitna that is tamuju kamuj al-bahr, that will come and like the ocean, it will come and take over everything. He says, Hudayfa ibn Yaman, he says to him, baynaka wa baynaha bab. Oh Umar, why are you worried about such a fitna? And between you and that fitna is a gate blocking that fitna. Umar, he asks him, I have one question for you. Ayuftahu al-bab am yuksar? He says, is that gate going to be broken, or is it going to be opened? Hudayfa al-Yamani says, bal yuksar. This gate is going to be destroyed. Umar ibn Khattab, he says, ahra alla yughlaq abada. This gate then we shall never be closed again ever. And he left. The companions of Hudayfa al-Yamani, they asked him, did Umar know who the gate was? He says to them, Wallahi, he was sure of the gate as the same way he was sure that tomorrow morning comes after tonight. And they asked him, who is the gate? The gate is Umar ibn Khattab. He is the gate that is blocking the fitna. And when he was killed and when he was assassinated, then the fitna started on the Muslims. And the first great fitna that we're taking tonight is the fitna of the killing of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. One of the greatest fitna, one of the greatest trials and tribulations to befall the Ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Just to go a little bit back, who is this man Uthman ibn Affan? Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu is a respectable, one of the most respectable of the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This man is one of the 10 people who became Muslim. The very first 10 amongst them is Uthman ibn Affan. Lam yazni fil Islami wala fil Jahiliyyah. He never fornicated in Jahiliyyah, not in Islam. Walam yashrab al-khamr. He never even used to drink alcohol, rahimahullah wa radiyallahu anhu. He became a Muslim. He was oppressed a lot in Mecca. He left Mecca and he came here to East Africa. He came for hijrah here in Habasha. So he made hijrah to Habasha. Then there's a rumor that the people of Mecca have become Muslim. So he went back to Mecca with his wife Ruqayya bint Muhammad. He was married to the daughter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He goes back to Mecca and he finds the news false. Then a short while later, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam allows the Muslims to perform hijrah to Medina, to leave Mecca and go to Medina. So this man is one of the people who have the special status of performing two hijrahs. He performed hijrah to Africa, to Habasha, and he performed hijrah from Mecca to Medina. In the year 2 after the Battle of Badr, he lost his dear wife Ruqayya bint Muhammad. The daughter of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ruqayya, was married to Uthman. She died in the year 2 in her early 20s. After a short while, the Prophet ﷺ marries Uthman to his other daughter, Kulthum. So this was the only man in history from the day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam ﷺ until the day of judgment. There's only one man who married two daughters of a prophet, and that is Uthman ibn Affan, Dhu Nurayn, the person who's called the owner of two lights. The only man who married two daughters of a prophet is Uthman ibn Affan. So he married Kulthum. And he had an excellent seerah with the Muslims. One day Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was relaxing in the house of Aisha radiallahu anha. Then his legs or his thighs were exposed. Abu Bakr enters the house, the Prophet continues relaxing. Umar enters the house, the Prophet continues relaxing. Then he saw Uthman bil Bab. Uthman is on the door. Prophet ﷺ hurriedly, he stood up and he made up his clothes and he sat in an attentive and tidy manner. After Uthman left, Prophet ﷺ asks Aisha. Aisha asks the Prophet, Abu Bakr entered, you did nothing. Umar entered, you did nothing. But when Uthman entered the house, you stood up hurriedly and you made up your clothes and you covered your thighs and your legs. Why did you do such a thing? Listen to what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says. He says, "Ala astahi min rajulin tastahi minhu al-malaika." Ala astahi min rajulin tastahi minhu al-malaika. Will I not feel any shame or shyness to a man that the angels of Allah feel shyness to? This man had so much shyness that the angels of Allah used to be shy in his presence. And Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also shy in the presence of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. This is a great lesson for us as believers. We should be shy to Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. The second thing, another time he went to one of the gardens of Medina. Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was at the gate. He says, wait, I ask for permission so you can enter and meet Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he goes, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, and asks Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, Uthman is asking for permission to come to see you. Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, Bashirhu bil Jannah. Tell him he's amongst the people of Jannah. وَبَلَاءٍ تُصِيبُهُ. And tell him that he shall be harmed by a fitna imtihan that will come to him. He'll get a great imtihan, but tell him that he has the glad tidings of Jannah. Another time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was on the mountain of Uhud, and the mountain shook, and he was with Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, and he says, Ya Uhud, uthbut, O Uhud, stay firm. Upon you is a Nabi, a Siddiq, and two Shaheeds. Upon you is myself, Prophet Muhammad, a Siddiq, Abu Bakr, and two Shaheeds, Umar and Uthman. Ikhwani fillah, before we talk about his fitna and how he was killed, a unique thing about Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu that few Muslims know. If you go to Mecca or you go to Medina, you shall find some buildings, it's written property of Uthman ibn Affan. You'll find hotels, buildings. He's the only man from that date that has a bank account. Uthman ibn Affan has a bank account in Saudi Arabia till today. He has buildings in his name till today. Sadaqatun jariyah for him. Who is this great man, Uthman ibn Affan? We should read his seerah. So, Umar ibn Khattab was assassinated. And the new leader of the Muslims was Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. He led the Muslims very well. The Muslims were wealthy. They had so much wealth. But this wealth confuses people. Sometimes they forget about akhirah. Sometimes they forget about Jannah and they start thinking about this dunya. So, a man in Yemen la'natullah alayh, a Yahudi man called Abdullah ibn Saba from the Yahud of Sana'a. This man, he thought of, how can I destroy the Muslims? So he said, step number one, I'll become a Muslim. He became a Muslim. Number two, he pretended to be a Muslih, a person who wants good for the Muslims. So he started spreading falsehoods and news about the governors of Uthman ibn Affan. He started saying Uthman ibn Affan is an oppressor. Uthman ibn Affan has done this, has done this, has done that. His governors have done this. He started making rumors. And people started gathering around him. But he felt that these people are not enough. He felt he wants a bigger group. So he started doing something that is unique to the Jews. He says he took letters and started forging letters. He says, I've gotten a letter from Ali ibn Abi Talib complaining about Uthman ibn Affan. I've gotten a letter from Zubayr ibn Awwam complaining about Uthman ibn Affan. I've gotten a letter from Talha ibn Ubaidillah complaining about Uthman ibn Affan. I've gotten a letter from Aisha radiallahu anha bint Siddiq complaining about Uthman and his oppressions, and they're asking us as Muslims to come and rescue them from Medina. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he tells us in the Quran, أَوَلَا يَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا يُسِرُّونَ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابَ إِلَّا أَمَانِيَّ وَإِنْهُمْ إِلَّا يَظُنُّونَ فَوَيْلٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَكْتُبُونَ الْكِتَابَ بِأَيْدِيهِمْ ثُمَّ يَقُولُونَ هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ لِيَشْتَرُوا بِهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا فَوَيْلٌ لَهُمْ مِمَّا كَتَبَتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَوَيْلٌ لَهُمْ مِمَّا يَكْسِبُونَ. The Jews have a bad habit of writing anything, then they say هَذَا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. This is a book from Allah. So they used to write falsehood about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you expect them not to write falsehood about me and yourself? Do you not expect them to write falsehood about Prophet Muhammad and Uthman and his other companions? So this man started spreading falsehood about Uthman ibn Affan, and people gathered with him. وَمِنْهُمْ أُمِّيُّونَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ الْكِتَابَ. Amongst them are illiterate people who do not even know how to read. إِلَّا أَمَانِيَّ, except false hope. They have desires. It says exactly as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-Baqarah. People started gathering amongst this person, Abdullah ibn Saba. So he had people from Basra, from Kufa, from Egypt. Came the year 35 of the Hijri calendar, the month of Dhul Qa'dah. They come to Medina pretending to be Hujjaj. Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. So they come to Medina. 4,000 men from Kufa, from Basra, and from Egypt. And suddenly the Muslims welcome this Hujjaj, because when the Hujjaj comes to Medina or Mecca, it is something very pleasant. We want to welcome these people. These are the visitors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But these people do something strange. They have not come for Hajj. They have not come for Ibadah. They go straight for the house of the Khalifa of the Muslims, Uthman ibn Affan, and they surround his house with swords unsheathed. They have come to fight. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu tells the Muslims, do not fight them. Do not fight them. Please do not fight them. Let me talk to them. The people that come, they say to him, Ya adu Allah, anta kafir, you are a kafir, you are an enemy of Allah, you have done this, you have done this, you have done this. What is all these stories? Let us meet in the mosque of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What are your complaints against me? Say, complaint number one, you have brought bid'ah in the religion of Islam. The Prophet alayhi salatu salam, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, when they used to go for Hajj in Mina, they used to pray Dhuhr 2 rak'ah. Asr they used to pray 2 rak'ah. But you are praying 4 rak'ah. This is bid'ah in the religion. Uthman, he says to them, I have a family in Mecca. I do not consider myself a traveler, a musafir. I feel that I cannot pray the prayer of a musafir, and they accepted this reason from him. They made other issues. They say you're taking the property of the Muslims, your camels are grazing on Islamic land. They make a lot of complaints regarding Uthman ibn Affan. He answers every of the complaint in a way that satisfies them. And the people of Egypt, they go back. Abdullah ibn Saba, he's biting his fingers, this Yahudi, alayhi la'natullah. And he thinks of a plan. So he forges another letter. And he writes that from Uthman ibn Affan, and he writes something on this letter. And he gives a man to take this letter to Egypt. So the people of Egypt, they're going back and they see a strange man following them. They look at this man, this strange man is following them. So it's very suspicious. They capture this man and ask him, what is wrong with you? Why are you following us? What issue do you have with us? He says, I am a messenger sent by Uthman ibn Affan to the people of Egypt. You're a messenger. Uthman sent you. What did he send you with? A letter. Show us that letter. And they take the letter and they read the letter. It says, from Uthman ibn Affan to the governor of Egypt, if these people come back to Egypt, arrest them, cut off their hands, cut off their legs, crucify them and kill them. So this is what the letter says. So the people saw this letter and they got very angry. And they went back to Medina with their swords. They want to fight. They go to Ali ibn Abi Talib and they say, look what the Adu Allah has done. He wants to kill us. Read his letter. Ali says to them, I'm not going to read it. Says, why are you not going to read it? Are you not the one who wrote for us letters calling us to Medina to assist you? He says, Wallahi ma katabtu lakum shay'an. Wallahi, I never wrote for you anything. I never wrote for you anything. Go back. Go back to where you've come from. They refuse to hear him. They go to Uthman ibn Affan. They show him the letter. We made peace with you. We had an agreement with you. We spoke in the mosque of Prophet Muhammad and we're going back to our country. Yet you want to betray us and you want to kill us? Look at your letter. Uthman, he says to them, between me and you is two things. Either you bring two witnesses witnessing that I wrote this letter. Or number two, you accept me as my witness. I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I did not write any letter. I did not write any letter. They refuse. And they besiege his house. And they, all 4,000 of them. So Uthman doesn't know what to do. Radiallahu anhu. He comes, he leads the Muslims in prayer. 10 days passes, 15 days passes. Then the people, this munafiqun, as in another hadith by Prophet Muhammad, they say to him, we're not going to allow you any longer to pray in the mosque. So they lock him in his house. And they refuse any water to come to him, any food to come to him. The Sahaba, Ali ibn Talib, Zubair ibn Awwam, Talha ibn Ubaidillah, these are the Ashar Mubashirin bil Jannah. Some of the people promised the Jannah. They send their sons to protect Uthman. Ali sends Hassan. Zubair sends Abdullah ibn Zubair. Talha sends his son Muhammad ibn Talha. They go on this with their swords to protect Uthman ibn Affan, the Khalifa of the Muslims. Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu, he also comes. He says to him, Ya Uthman, behind me is 600 from the Ansar of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The same way we were Ansar to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we want to be Ansar to you. We want to fight for your sake. Uthman, he says to them, no, go back to your houses. He says to them, no, go back to your houses. I do not want to be the first one to have a sword or fighting in my name. I do not want any bloodshed in my name. Go back to your houses. So the Muslims, they try everything to talk to Uthman, but Uthman does not listen to them. He gets very thirsty. He goes to his balcony of his house and he says to the Muslims, "O Muslims, I ask you a question. There's a time Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, who will buy the well of Ruma, Bi'r al-Ruma, falahu al-Jannah. Who will buy this well for the Muslims and for him is Jannah. And I bought it with my property. I bought for you this well with my property. Today you're denying me food. Today you're denying me water. All Muslims, Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he stood up on the minbar when the battle of Tabuk was coming and the Romans wanted to destroy the Islamic Empire. And he says, Man yujahizu jaysh al-usra. Who will give provisions for the army that is going to Tabuk to fight the Nasara? And I stood up and I said, Alayya mi'atu ba'ir bi'ahlasiha waqtabiha fi sabilillah. I gave 100 camels. And he stood up the second time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I gave 200 camels, fully stocked. And he stood up a third time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I gave 300 camels. And the Prophet alayhi sallam went to his house, and I brought 1,000 gold coins. And he says, ما ضر عثمان ما عمل بعد اليوم. ما ضر عثمان ما عمل بعد اليوم. Uthman, nothing will harm him after he does today. I gave food to the Mujahideen going to Tabuk, and today you're denying me food and my family. You're denying me water with my family. He says, the mosque of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ became small. Prophet ﷺ asked the Muslims, who will buy the next plot so that I can expand my mosque? And I bought the next plot with my money to expand the mosque of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. On this day, you're preventing me to go pray in the mosque of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he went back to his house as he was in tears. The Sahaba, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Abu Huraira, Abdullah ibn Umar, Marwan ibn Hakam was one of the Sahaba. They say to him, we are here to protect you. Al-Hasan ibn Ali, we are here to protect you. O Amir al-Mu'mineen, give us permission and we shall fight this mujrimun. We shall fight them and protect you. He says, no. The death of one person is better than the death of many. I am ready to die, but I protect all your lives. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu. Then came the 17th of Dhul Hijjah, the year 35 of the Hijri calendar, one of the darkest days of Islamic history. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, he wakes up from a dream and is very happy. And he tells his wife, I saw Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream. And I saw his two companions, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar ibn Khattab. And they say to me, تفطر عندنا الليلة. You shall eat your iftar with us tonight. This is the dream that Uthman ibn Affan, he saw Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream. And he saw Abu Bakr and Umar, and they were saying to him, Ya Uthman, تفطر الغد الليلة عندنا. You shall take your iftar with us tonight. So Uthman, he says to his companions, the young companions, Al-Hasan ibn Ali, tells them, if I am your leader and you obey me, listen to me. They say, we shall listen. Take your swords, put them back in your sheaths and go back to your houses. Go back to your homes. And they leave. Then he turns to his servants and his slaves. And he tells his slaves, put your sword back and you're free, fi sabilillah. You're free, you're no longer slaves if you just put your sword back and go. And they do so. And he opens his gates and he goes and he recites from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's reciting from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this munafiqun, this mujrimun who are besieging his house from the group of Abdullah ibn Saba, they enter his house and they start striking him, radiyallahu anhu. And he starts protecting himself with his hand. And they cut off his hand. And he said, Wallahi, you have cut off a hand. That is the first hand to write the Mus'haf that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This hand wrote the Mus'haf, and you're cutting it off. And they strike him. His wife Naila comes to protect her husband, and she loses 3 of her fingers, and she is thrown back. And they kill Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. And his blood spills, and a drop of blood spills on the Mus'haf that he was reciting. Amra binti Artah, she says, I had gone for Hajj with Aisha radiallahu anha. We come back to Medina after Uthman has been killed. This is at the time of Hajj. This is Dhul Hijjah. Many Muslims have gone for Hajj. Medina is not as full as usual. So Amr ibn Artah, she says, we came back to Medina. We came to the house of Uthman and we opened the Mus'haf that he was reciting. And the blood has spilled in the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will revenge for you. Or Allah will suffice you. Amra, she says, Wallahi, every single person who participated in the killing of Uthman died a very bad death. Amongst them, there's a man who swore, says, Wallahi, I'm going to kill Uthman, I'm going to slap him first. He says, I entered the house and I found Uthman already killed. And I didn't know what to do. So when the Muslims were praying Salatul Janazah, I pretended to be amongst them. So I came to the house and I looked around when no one was looking. I removed the sheet that was covering his face and I slapped Uthman on his face. And my hand crippled from that day. Ibn Sirin, he says, I saw this man in Mecca saying the strangest dua ever. Oh Allah, forgive me, but I know you'll not forgive me. Oh Allah, forgive me, but I know you will not forgive me. So ask this man the story, and he says, I am amongst the people who participated in the killing of Uthman ibn Affan, and I do not expect to be forgiven. Another man, when he was killing Uthman, Uthman said to him, may Allah cut off your hands and your legs and make you blind. Years later, he lost his hands, he lost his legs, and he became blind, and he was shouting, An-nar, An-nar, I am going to the hellfire, I am going to the hellfire. Ikhwani fillah, this is one of the greatest fitna ever to occur amongst the Muslims. The killing of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. From that date on to today, to the day of Qiyamah, Muslims will continue spilling blood of their fellow Muslims. And the very first blood that was spilled from amongst the Muslims by the Muslims was the blood of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. And this is one of the greatest fitna and the darkest period in our Islamic history. Tomorrow, inshallah, we shall look at great fitna that occurred amongst the Sahaba, amongst the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of the killing of Uthman ibn Affan radiyallahu anhu. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.